Hey, what's up? Last Layer King here. Today I'm going to go over how to weak swap corners for 3 blind and how and when it could be useful. If you haven't seen my prior videos on advanced weak swap, I encourage you to go check them out. They aren't prerequisites to this video, but if you understand how to weak swap edges, then the concepts I go over in this video should be very familiar. I'm going to go over this from the context of using UB and UBL as your buffers. If you use UF and UFR, the concept is going to be the same, but the specific targets and pieces will be different. And specifically, I'm going to go over the concepts from the context of using the UBL sticker specifically as your buffer. I know some people use other stickers like LUB or BUL. I personally use LUB, but I know that most people use UBL over the other two. So I'm going to go over everything from the context of using UBL. I'm also going to go over this from the context of not knowing whether or not you have parity when starting your corner memo. If you memo edges first, then you'll know going into corner memo whether or not you have parity, but I'm going to go over this from the context of not knowing whether or not you have parity going into corner memo. So the purpose of doing advanced weak swap is to force what one or more of your last targets will be at the end of your solution so that you can do an algorithm from an algorithm set to solve those targets plus something else to make your solve more efficient. I'll go over some specific algorithm sets later in this video and in future videos. When it comes to corner weak swap, the objective is going to be to force your last corner target to be UFL. The way we're going to try to force the last corner target to be UFL is that if we happen to have to cycle break, we're going to send the buffer piece to UFL and then leave it there for the entire rest of corners so that the last target will be to UFL so that it solves at the end. If your buffers are UF and UFR, then your weak swap target is going to be UBR. So here is just a quick example. So if we start our memo, we'll start right here. This piece goes to here, which goes to here. And now we've hit our buffer. So because we hit the buffer, we're going to shoot this to UFL. So we hit the yellow side of the buffer, so we're going to just solve it right up to here. And then this is going to go to here, which goes to here, which goes to here. And then we find that our last target is going to be UFL, just like we want it to be. And at the end of solving your corners, we will have this swap. So here's another very similar example. So we'll trace buffer to here to here. Once again, we hit the buffer piece, so we're going to shoot it to UFL. So we'll go to here to here. This goes to here. And now we've hit the UFL piece. So the trick is we are not going to send the UFL piece to UFL. We're going to treat this piece as the buffer and then just cycle break. So we will shoot to here, and this piece will go to here to here. And we end up with an even number of targets. So now when we solve it, it'll look like this. So we'll go here to here to here. And then we have to shoot our buffer piece to UFL, so we'll go to here to here. So now our buffer piece is pseudo-solved in UFL. So whenever we get the buffer piece in our weak swap location, I'm going to refer to it as being pseudo-solved because it's basically where you want it to be, but not like technically in the solved location. So now we're going to shoot from buffer to here, and if we were to shoot it back to here, then we would have to cycle break. So instead of cycle breaking, we're going to cycle break early to leave the buffer piece in UFL. So we're going to go here to here to here. And then if we finish the way we finished earlier, here to here, we will find that we have the UBL UFL swap like we want. Setting up the weak swap is pretty easy when the sticker you hit on your buffer piece is the top color sticker because obviously it's just going to go to the top. It's a bit more tricky when the piece you hit is a side color. So for this specific orientation, if we happen to hit the blue color, in order to keep the orientation of the piece, the blue target will have to go right here. And if we hit the orange piece on the buffer, then we'll have to shoot this piece to here. So the location is going to depend on what side color sticker you hit in order to maintain the orientation of the piece. So as an example, we will start with buffer to here, which goes to here. And now we hit the buffer piece and we did not hit the top color, so we have to shoot it to the side. And I know that if I hit the blue side, it goes to the front. So this will go to here, which will go to here, and we correctly finished the cycle on the top color sticker of the UFL piece. If we shot the buffer piece to the wrong location of the UFL piece, we would not end up on this yellow here. We would end up on either the red or the blue. Now, if there were multiple cycle breaks, you might not be able to figure that out because you would end up on a different piece rather than this piece, because this piece would be cycle broken to something else. But it just takes a bit of getting used to know that if you hit one color, you go to one location. If you hit the other color, you go to the other location. So far, all the cases I went over happen to have parity. So let me show you what happens if you don't have parity. So here we have buffer to here, and then this is our buffer piece. So we're going to weak swap it to UFL. But we're going to have to weak swap it over to here so that it gets correctly oriented. So we have buffer to here, which goes to here, and we've hit the UFL piece again. So we're going to cycle break it somewhere. So I'll cycle break it to here. This piece goes to here, back up to here. And now we have another cycle break. So this piece is going to go to here, and then this piece goes back to here, and we get an odd target. So whenever you do weak swap and you get an odd target, it means you don't have parity. So the way we're going to solve that is, because our buffer piece is in UFL, we'll shoot buffer to the odd target to UFL, and that will solve corners. So to show that in action, we'll solve it by going buffer to here. And now we have our buffer piece correctly pseudo-solved in UFL and oriented correctly. And then we have buffer to here, and we cycle broke to here. And now we have buffer to here. And then we had to cycle break again. So I believe I cycle broke this piece to here, which goes to here. And then the last target was here. So then we see that the actual 3 cycle we have is buffer to here. And then when we do that cycle, we finish corners. The weak swap will only work if you happen to hit your buffer piece before you hit UFL. If you hit UFL first, you're just going to solve it there. And then if you hit your buffer, you won't have that UFL piece available to weak swap to because it would already be solved. If this happens, you'll just have to cycle break normally and then solve the rest of corners normally. So as an example, we have buffer to here, hitting the UFL piece, which goes to here, which goes to here. And now that we hit the buffer, we cannot go to UFL because UFL will already be solved. So I'll just cycle break to here, which goes to here, and then my last target will be here. There's a few cases you'll need to know how to handle when it comes to corners twisted in place. In this scramble here, we see that this corner here is twisted. So now let's just go through how we would memo it. So we have buffer to here, and this is our buffer piece, so we're going to weak swap it to UFL. And because we hit the orange side of it, we're going to weak swap it over to here, which goes to here, which goes to here. So now we've hit the UFL piece, and we're basically treating this piece as our buffer because we did weak swap. But we're supposed to hit the yellow side of this piece and not the blue. So because we hit the other side, that means there's a twist somewhere, and the twist is here. So we hit an even number of targets, which means we have parity. Because if you get an even number of targets, we need to weak swap, you have parity. So now when we solve it, let's see what happens. So we have buffer to here. And now we have our buffer piece weak swapped in UFL. And then we have here to here. And then we have buffer to here to finish what we memoed. And the result is that we have our buffer piece correctly weak swapped to UFL. The UFL piece is in the buffer location but misoriented, and then this piece is still misoriented. So we have a swap and a twist. So one way to deal with this is just to do the twist alg to twist your buffer piece and this piece. And then you end up with a UBL UFL swap. There is a more efficient way of dealing with this, which I will go over in a future video. In this scramble here, we'll also find that there is a twisted corner. So here we have our buffer piece solved. So normally when you have a solved buffer, you'll just immediately cycle break, but we can just immediately weak swap it to UFL. So we'll shoot this piece to here, which goes to here, which goes to here, to here, which goes to here. And then because we hit the UFL piece and we didn't hit the yellow side, we know that there is a twist. And because this is the first piece in the letter pair, we can easily cycle break into the twist. So this piece will go to, I like to shoot to whatever location has the white or yellow sticker. So this will go to here. And then our last target will be here. And this is basically a parity target. And because we did weak swap, we know we actually don't have parity, and we'll just need to finish the cycle on UFL. So solving it, it'll look like this, buffer to here to here. And now our buffer piece is weak swapped in UFL. And then we have buffer to here to here. And then we had buffer to here. And then instead of shooting this piece to here, which would leave us with a 2 twist, if you memoed it normally, that's what you would do. And you would get this, which is a 2 twist. But instead we're going to cycle break it into this twist here. So we have buffer to here to here. And then we have buffer to here. This was our last target. And then we have to undo the weak swap. So we go buffer to here to here. You'll find that this is more efficient than if you didn't memo this with the weak swap, because if you didn't use weak swap, you'd end up doing 3 comms and a twist alg, whereas what we did here was 4 comms. And this is faster because a comm is faster than a twist alg. Now let's go over some cases where there are 2 corner twists on the cube. So the easiest case with 2 corner twists is if the corners are twisted opposite directions. If you get this, you can basically just ignore them and solve the rest of the cube normally, because you can solve those 2 corners at any point in the solve without affecting anything else on the cube. Where things get interesting is if we have 2 corners twisted like these 2 that are twisted the same way. These 2 cannot be solved by doing something that doesn't affect anything else, because if you ever were to try to twist these 2, you must twist a 3rd corner the same direction in order to preserve the corner orientation on the cube. So let's go over how this will work. This case we'll find has parity. So we have buffer to here to here. We'll now weak swap this piece. We hit the orange side, so we're going to go to this location here to here. And this is our UFL piece. So because we hit the side color and not the top color, we know there's a twist, and there's actually 2 twists. So we have 4 targets and 2 twists. So the way we're going to handle this is we are going to solve the targets. So we have buffer to here to here. And then we had buffer to here to here. And then we'll find that we have the piece in our buffer location, which is the UFL piece. It's twisted, and these 2 are twisted. So before you do anything with edges, you're going to want to solve this twist. So we can do this however you would normally solve 3 twist algs. If you do it one at a time, that's okay. If you know a 3 twist alg for every case, then that's okay as well. And that will leave you with the correct swap. So in this position here, we have 2 corners twisted the same way again, and we're going to find that this position does not have parity. So if we started memoing it, we go buffer to here to here. We're going to weak swap this piece over to here to here. This goes to here, and this is basically an odd target because we are now treating this piece as the buffer because we did weak swap. So we have an odd target and we have a weak swap, which means there's no parity. So the most efficient way to deal with this is to just finish the cycle. So this piece is going to go to here. And you have to finish the cycle on wherever, basically wherever this color tells you, that's where you go. You don't finish the cycle on the top piece that you weak swap to. You have to finish the cycle at whatever color it is right here. So we will now solve our corners as we memoed. So we had buffer to here to here. And then we weak swap this piece to here to here. So now we have our buffer piece correctly weak swapped to UFL. And now we will solve this by cycling buffer to here to here. So the result we get is that the UFL piece is now correctly oriented because we shot it to the correct location at the end. And then the buffer piece is now misoriented. So then we can solve this position by just doing the 3 twist. And this will solve our corners. One of the most difficult situations to deal with is after doing weak swap, you find that you have 2 twisted corners twisted the same way, plus an additional cycle break. If this happens, then you won't know where on this piece to shoot the last target to, because your cycle won't end here, it'll end on a different target. So here we have buffer to here, because we hit the blue side of the buffer, it's just twisted in place. So this goes to here to here. Now we'll cycle break this to here, and this piece goes to here. And then because we have an odd number of targets, we know we don't have parity. So normally, if we only had 1 twisted corner, we would cycle break into the twist. But with 2 twisted corners, we could theoretically cycle break into both twists, but that would add 2 columns and it's inefficient. So it's actually better to just shoot this to the UFL piece, solving it, and then you'll get a 3 twist. So to show how this will work, I'll just solve it. So buffer to here to here. And then we cycle broke to here to here. And then we find that we have buffer to here, and the last target is going to be to here. And then this will give us a twisted buffer, and then these 2 corners will be twisted, and we can solve the rest of the cube with a 3 twist. But the question is how to know whether you should be shooting to this target or to this target for your last comm before you actually start execution. Well, it turns out you can determine that by looking at what direction these corners are twisted. So here both of the corners are twisted counterclockwise. So whenever the corners are twisted counterclockwise, we'll be able to shoot to this target to solve the UFL piece at the end of it. If the corners are twisted clockwise, we go to this target. So it can take a lot of getting used to just recognizing what direction the corner twist is, and then just knowing what target to shoot to based on the twist. So you'll just have to experiment around with scrambles like these that have like these multiple cycle breaks and the twists, and just figure out what target you need to shoot to for different types of twists. But it turns out for the UBL orientation, if the twists are counterclockwise, you finish the cycle here, and if they're clockwise, you finish the cycle here. So for this specific case, when our last target is here, and we see we have this 2 twist, we can see that because the corners are twisted counterclockwise, our last cycle will be buffer to here to here. Now there is one other approach which you could theoretically do, and that would be to always shoot to this target. If you always shoot to this target at the very end, then your buffer is guaranteed to be solved. And what will happen is you'll have a 3 twist between this piece and any other piece. So just to show how that would work, we'll go buffer to here, and then we have buffer to here, and then we have buffer to here, and then when we see the 2 twist, we're just going to shoot this to here. So this would be an extra algorithm set you have to learn. So if you already know like somehow how to do like intuitive 3 twists, then this would be viable. But my recommendation would just be to figure out what target to shoot to based on the orientation of these 2 corners. So I've talked a lot about how to set up this swap. Now let's get into why this could be useful. So normally when you have parity, what you'll want to do is set up a UB-UL swap on edges. And in a prior video, I went over how to weak swap a UB-UL swap on edges. However, if you happen to hit your buffer piece before you hit UL, then you wouldn't be able to set up the weak swap, so your last edge target would be something random. And in order to make a UB-UL swap, you'd have to do an extra comm. But if you know how to weak swap corners, then you can take advantage of an algorithm set, which is a subset of advanced parity, to solve parity when you have this corner swap. So essentially, you would be solving your edge buffer to somewhere, and your corner buffer to UFL. Now, if you happen to get a case where you hit your UL piece before you hit your buffer, and you hit UFL before you hit your corner buffer, then you sort of just got unlucky. And there's really only a 1 in 4 chance of that happening. So even with just regular parity and this set with the UBL UFL swap, you can do advanced parity on 3/4 of your solves just by setting up your swaps efficiently. I will put a link to an algorithm sheet that has all of the parity algs for the UB buffer and UBL buffer to solve this corner swap and any other edge swap on the cube. And you'll find a lot of the algorithms are pretty easy, like a lot of them are just R-perms, and even something like this is just going to be a setup into an R-perm. So we have our edge buffer going to here, and then this corner swap, so we'll just do R prime into an R-perm. And then a few cases are just an edge comm canceled into an R-perm. So with this edge swap, it's actually pretty efficient to just cycle this piece to here, and then cancel that into an R-perm. Maybe not totally optimal, but it's certainly better than just doing an edge comm followed by a J-perm for parity. So I'll put a link to the corner swap parity algs in the description. Also, if you use UF and UFR as your buffers, I will also include a link to an algorithm sheet that will swap these two corners and your edge buffer with any other edge piece on the cube, and that can solve advanced parity for that subset as well. Now that I've gone over a useful algorithm set, let's do some example solves. So here's our first example solve. I'll put the scramble in the description. So for edges, we have buffer to here, which goes to here, 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 which goes to here, and that finishes the cycle on the buffer piece. So we had an odd number of targets, so we know we have parity. Now for corners, we have buffer to here, and we hit the buffer piece. So we're going to weak swap it over to here. So we have buffer to here, which goes to here, which goes to here, and we've hit the UFL piece. So we haven't finished, so we're going to cycle break, and I'll cycle break it to here, which goes to here, and that finishes the cycle. So we had an even number of corner targets, and we did weak swap, so that means we have parity. So now I like to solve corners first, so we had buffer to here, and that weak swaps are corner to UFL, and now we had buffer to here, and then to here, and I cycle broke to here, and then here to here. And now I've got our UBL UFL swap. And now we can do edges, so we had buffer to here, 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 to here. And now we can finish with the parity alg because we just have a single edge swap left, and the algorithm goes like this. It's just an R prime setup into an R perm. Here is our other example solve. So starting with edges, we have buffer to here, 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 which goes to here, and this is our last target. And then on corners, we have buffer to here, and we've hit the buffer piece, so we have to weak swap it to UFL, so it goes to this location because we hit orange, which goes to here, which goes to here, and this is our UFL piece, so we'll cycle break it again, so this goes to here, and this piece goes to here to finish the cycle. So we had an even number of targets on corners, so that means because we did weak swap, we have parity. So now starting execution on corners. So we had buffer to here, and then we had to here, and then we had here, and then we cycle broke this to here. And then we had to here to finish corners. And now we have our UBL UFL swap. So now going on to edges, we had buffer to here to here, to here to here, to here to here, to here to here, to here to here. And our last edge target is here, so we'll do the parity alg to swap the buffer to here while swapping these two corners. And this one is just an S-move setup into a J-perm. And that finishes the solve. So I hope you found this video instructive. I'll be uploading a few videos in the future about other algorithm sets that you can use when weak swapping corners. So I will catch you in those videos.